Good morning. I am Katridia Martin, Chair for the Commission on the Status of Women. It is an honor to greet you on behalf of the commissioners. We are very pleased to be able to welcome those of you that have been with us for a long time, as well as those of you who are joining us for the first time. The Commission has strived to improve the health and well-being of women in the community. Since 1973, the commissioners has represented the interests of women in leadership, female entrepreneurs, seniors, domestic violence survivors, and health and wellness issues affecting all women. It was the first commission in the state to win city funding for staff and expenses. This year marks 41 years since the Commission on the Status of Women hosted the first Women Equality Day celebration. Our first virtual event was held in spite of the pandemic last year, and we are excited to be able to host our second virtual celebration today. We join the nation in commemorating the 101st anniversary of the adoption of the 19th Amendment to the United States, passed by Congress June 4th, 1919, and ratified on August 18th, 1920. The amendment granted women the right to vote. While many women were able to head to the polls, the amendment did not give voting rights to all women. Women of color, immigrants, and lower income women were often deterred from voting by laws and social pressure. For many, the struggle continues today. Our theme, The Future of Equality is Now, reminds us that we must make it a priority to stay focused and committed to make the rights of all women equal. We are proud to remember the women who came before us and paved the way for us today. I want to thank Mayor Nancy Vaughn, our liaison, Councilwoman Mary Kay Abuzawader, City Council members, Commissioner, Human Rights staff, our keynote speaker, Dr. Sheila Robinson, and all program guests for your participation and support of this program. To our special guests, I am thankful to each and every one of you for being here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Liana Adan, Chair for the International Advisory Committee, as she brings our moment of reflections as well as moment of silence. We will then hear from Ms. Adria Gladney singing Rise Up. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. To understand my passion in pursuing higher education, take a chance in leadership role, and my desires to go into social work to help the refugees and immigrants community, I like to reflect on my parents' struggle and sacrifices to bring me and my sibling to the United States. My mother never got a chance to go to school, and because my grandmother died at a young age, my mother had given her childhood dream and her school just so she can take care of her sibling. You see, my mother did not want to come to the United States at the beginning because she does not know how to read and write. I remember she would refer to herself as a stupid person because she does not know how to read and write. What I have learned from my mother is that she is resilient. She raised 4 children when my father was in the re-education camp in Vietnam, and later on has 5 more children and raised a total of 9 children in poverty. She is one of the strongest women that I know, and every day I've learned from her, and it makes me want to do better every single day. I want to take this time to thank all the women in my life, my friends, my coworkers, my siblings, my daughter, and many more who have impacted my life in the past. And I want you all to do the same thing. Take a moment of silence to thank or to think of all the women in your life.
Good evening, everyone. I hope this song can be a reminder that together we can rise together and continue to make strides as the wonderful women that we all are. You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we can walk it out. Ooh, mountains, we're gonna walk it out and move. Mountains, I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the age. I'll rise up and I'll do it 1,000 times again. I'll rise up high like the waves. I'll rise up. I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll bring the world to its feet. And mountains, bring it to its feet and move. Mountains will rise up, rise like the day. We'll rise and afraid, we'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope. And for that we have each other. Yes, for that we have each other. Yes. And we will rise. Yes, we will rise. Oh, we will rise. We'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the end. I'll rise 1,000 times again. I'll rise up high like the waves. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I'll rise up and I'll do it 1,000 times again. With you, with you, for you, we will rise.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, Adria, for that selection. That performance was absolutely amazing. Today, I will be introducing Dr. Sheila Robinson, our speaker. Dr. Sheila Robinson is a celebrated publisher, author on leadership, inspiring speaker, and talent innovation specialist. Her company, Diversity Women Media, is recognized nationally as a leading multi-platform enterprise with program offerings that advances all dimensions of diversity and inclusion. As an expert in diversity and inclusion, Dr. Robinson helps leading companies transform their culture to reach gender parity, equity, and belonging by combining her firsthand experience climbing the corporate ladder with the highest academic degrees, best practices from her leading magazines, and a deep passion for evidence-based workplace learnings. During her 14-year career at a Fortune 100 company, Dr. Robinson rose from working on the factory floor to the executive office, ultimately directing communications for a $6 billion division of a global chemical company. Her experiences, including the obstacles she faced as an African-American businesswoman in the South, led her to want to help other business leaders achieve leadership success in their career journey. Over the past 2 decades, Diversity Women Media has grown to become a multifaceted company that helps customers drive and deliver business results through diversity, inclusion, and talent development initiatives. Dr. Robinson is the author of 2 books, Lead by Example, an insider's look at how to successfully lead in corporate America and on entrepreneurship. And her second book is Your Toolkit for Success, the Professional Woman's Guide for Advancing to the C-Suite. She serves with the most influential organizations that are working to foster equity, equality, and inclusive workplaces, including a Paradigm for Parity, advisory board member, Catalyst, where she serves as the strategic business partner, Executive Leadership Council, where she serves as the media partner, the Women's Business Collaborative, where she is the chair of diversity, and Twitter, she's a member of Inclusion Diversity Counselor, and lastly, the Simmons College Institute for Inclusive Leadership, where she's one of the board of advisors. She holds certificates from Stanford University Professional Publishing Program, Wharton School of Business Chief Learning Officer Program, University's Diversity and Inclusion, became a certified executive coach and member of the International Coach Federation, the world's largest community of professional training coaches, and is an advisor to CEOs and CHROs across the nation. Dr. Robinson earned both a Master's of Education and a Doctorate of Education from the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Robinson continues to inspire, be impactful, and actionable. Dr. Robinson is moving the world toward gender parity and inclusivity, one woman and one company at a time. Welcome, Dr. Sheila Robinson.
Thank you so much, Camille. Good morning, everyone. It is so wonderful to be here with you today. I am both delighted and honored, and I wish that we were in person. However, while we cannot physically be together, I'm just so grateful that we are all safe, vaccinated, healthy, and taking necessary precautions so that we can soon convene again in person. But there is an upside of us gathering virtually today with so many of you in attendance. Thank you for joining us and the dynamic speakers on the program, and the amazing performance we just heard was beautiful. I would like to also extend a special welcome and greeting to the Honorable and Distinguished Mayor Nancy Bond that is joining us, Councilwoman Mary Kay Abuzawaiter, and other council members that may be joining us. And a special thank you to the Greensboro Commission on the Status of Women, not only for this invitation to allow me to partner with you in this wonderful event today, but also for the work that you are doing to improve the quality of life for women in Greensboro. I want to thank all the other and welcome all the other program facilitators for your part, speakers, and the ladies and gentlemen in the audience and the virtual audience that's joining us this morning. As we gather to commemorate and celebrate Women's Equality Day, this is historic day that we normally put aside to celebrate the triumphs of women in the past, present, and future that have fought so hard and continue to fight for women's rights. We celebrate them all and we salute them all, and we do commemorate the 19th Amendment of the Constitution, which granted women the right to vote. It took 100 years for women to have the right to vote. This day, we're not only going to celebrate and be mindful of this time, but this is also an important time for us to remember that we have to stay active. We actively advocate for gender equality in all aspects of the lives of women. Whether we are advocating and allying to close the pay gap, to gain economic opportunity, gender equity in the workplace, and increase the representation of women across all industries and positions in the C-suite. That is why our theme this year is the future of equality is now, because we have to be actively engaged right now. You know, I talked about 100 years it took for women to have the right to vote. Do you know that there was a worldwide study done by the research firm McKinsey and Catalyst and the Georgetown Institute for Women in Peace and Security in 2019 that said it would take 100 years for women to reach gender parity? 100 years. We can't afford another 100 years. That is what I thought when I heard that research in 2019. And then 2020 happened. So what just came out in March of 2021? They have now added an extra 36 years to close the women's gender gap as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, global pandemic. 136 years? I have been fighting all last year saying we cannot afford to go backwards. We've come too far. But the events of 2020 have turned our worlds upside down. You know, under the highly challenging circumstances that we all experienced, women struggled more. We worried about our family's health and finances. We experienced burnout, which was a real issue for us. And we were very negatively impacted, especially women of color. They were more likely to have been laid off or furloughed during COVID because of the type of roles they had. So stalling careers have jeopardized the financial security, and that is why the pandemic has intensified the challenges that we already face. When this research took place, it showed that the disparity and inequalities that existed was because of three things. One, inclusion. They measured that by women's employment, their education, and political representation. So keep this in mind because I have some solutions that I'm going to bring in here. Two was justice. That was measured by legal protections against sex, gender discrimination, and attitudes about sex and gender discrimination, and reproductive and maternal health and healthcare access, those disparities. And then finally, security, as measured by safety in public spaces, freedom from intimate partner violence and gun violence, and healthcare access. It is because of those reasons that it's predicted that it will take 136 years for us to reach gender equality. We have to close that horrendous gap. So how do we do it? How do we go about reaching gender equality? Well, it requires a collective action and of solidarity of women and our human right defenders, like our male allies, and that are joining us on in attendance today. Political will, like from all the hard work that our elected officials are working on our behalf, and tools such as legislation, gender budgeting, and quotas. So if we are to get all of these things in order, we work together to get those things in order, when could we reach gender equality? How much of that gap can we close? 4 years, it'll be 2025. Will we be there in 4 years? I think not. In 9 years, it will be 2030. Can you imagine in 2030 that we are still experiencing what we are experiencing? 2035, that's 14 years. Researchers doubt that we will reach gender parity by then. Well, in 19 years, that will be 2040. Let's reach gender equality by 2040 or less. Let's speak today. Let's just brainstorm today how we all, men, women of every race, culture, and background, can join forces and come together to close this horrendous 130-year women's gap. We can actively work towards improving the quality of life for not only women, but for all of us, our families, our communities, our nation, and our world, and especially for our daughters of today and tomorrow. That is why the work that I do is based on my legacy that I want to live. I don't have to live to see this come to fruition, but what I have to do is be a part of it coming to fruition. Because there are no winners in inequalities. When inequalities exist, it disadvantages the disadvantages that inequalities provide. They don't just stay in one place. They don't just stay with the people that are disadvantaged. It spreads and roll over all areas of those, even those that are not disadvantaged. You will eventually suffer too. So that is why this is so important for us all to join forces so that we all can experience fairness and justice for all. It's the only way that we all will win. So I'm going to pull up a presentation. I'm a visual person, and I thought maybe if I do the next part of the presentation, visually on the future of equality is now. I want this to be embedded with you, and I want it to stick with you all. So when we talk about gender inequality, what can we do to try to reach this before 2040? We first and foremost can acknowledge that gender inequality exists. Believe it or not, there are so many people that are blind to this that would think that everything is actually okay, that they don't see a problem. But when we acknowledge that there is a problem, and not why the problem exists, but what we can do today to start moving forward toward eliminating practices that still include gender inequalities. We need to talk and listen and learn from each other so that we can start including women's voices to important decision making. The second thing we could do is we can eliminate fault. Stop blaming. If we continue to blame situations and others, it psychologically disengages our participation. It's not effective. We'll continue to recreate the past if we continue to blame others or blame situations, and we won't be a part of it because we're thinking it's not our fault. But if we change our view of our current situation, we can start visualizing and working toward the future that we all desire. We can commit. We can commit to supporting women and advocating for their human rights, fairness, and justice. We can commit right now. We can say, hey, I am going to be a part of this. I've already acknowledged that a problem does exist. Nobody's blaming me for what happened, so I'm not to blame, and I'm not blaming others. So I'm going to stop and commit now. We can even start by influencing our own dinner tables. We can influence how our children go into their playgrounds, into their schools. We can influence how our spouses and our mates go back into their workplaces and work grounds. We, as women, men, and people of all races, cultures, and backgrounds, have the power to start influencing change right at our very own dinner tables where we break bread. Let's embrace diversity. Embracing diversity is about getting to know and appreciate people of different religious, cultures, ethnic groups, social economic groups, or ages. It's one of the most fascinating things about the work that I do. I learn so much. It also helps you get comfortable with equality. You know, there are people that really are standoffish about, fairness and equality for everyone because they think they're going to lose something. They think it's going to take something away from them. Embrace diversity and get comfortable with equality and see that we're going to all grow and prosper. I love male allyship. We can get engaged with male allyship because male allyship, in order to effectively practice male allyship, it involves the work, the empathy, and the integrity of both individuals, both male and female. If you are a male, you must acknowledge that your position and privilege. You must acknowledge that you are in a better position than women and you have the opportunity to use your position and privilege to create change. It is not a negative. It is not a blame. We want you to utilize your strengths and your visibility in places where we're not to create change for us. And if you are a female, know that you're asking someone to put their reputation on the line, and it is important for us to do our part to gain that individual's trust so that they will want to fight on our behalf. And then the women, lifting others as we rise, because empowered women empower women. We can empower other women. We can elevate one another. We can mentor one another. We can ensure that our voices are heard at the table so that we all get supported, recognized, promoted, and receive equitable raises in our workplace. It is in a woman's nature to bring out the best in each other. That's why we're always saying, sister girl, how do I look? What do you think? Because it is in our nature to bring the very best out of each other. And then we must support our local officials and our community. We need to engage with local officials through elections. We must dispel the myth that only a 4-year election matters. We must understand the roles of our local officials and the impact, their critical impact. If we want to influence choices that affect you and others in your community, you have to get involved. You have to get engaged, especially the rights of women. So let's get out there and let's help our elected officials. Let's help our community members by educating ourselves on everything that we need to know about the policies and the needs of our community so we'll know who to vote for and why we are voting for them. And we need to get more women into power. A proven way to overcome many of the systemic barriers to a woman's success has been increased participation by women in local, regional, and national legislation as empowered change agents, because that's what we are, empowered change agents. And we must believe. We must believe that we can work together to eliminate this horrendous gap. Believe that how amazing our communities, nation, and society would look if everyone had the advantage to reach their full potential. Wouldn't it be wonderful if everyone was receiving equal pay, economic opportunity, had wonderful housing, safe housing, justice, health care, there were no health disparities, education, food, equity in the workplace. It would be a healthy, happy, prosperous society, and we will be a global leader. And these are the things that we need to start believing and feeling and visualizing. And many of the things that I have mentioned, while they appear to be very small steps, they are major things that will make major impact. I have had the good fortune of working with women of all races, cultures, and backgrounds, even men, working with our male advocates, our male allies. Has been one of the joys and greatest of my work, as I mentioned before, to work directly with Dr. Janetta Cole, who served as president of Bennett College in the Greensboro, North Carolina area. Our Dr. Maya Angelou, who has spoken at my events and mentored me before our passing or loss. There's a photo of me with Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, and his leadership team, and all the things that I have had the opportunity to work with. They are all people working towards a fair and just society for all women, for all people. And so in this time that we are here together, let's try to keep those tips and tools and utilize those resources, because we all play a major part, regardless of who you are, where you live, where you work, what your race, culture, or background is. We all play a significant part in closing the horrendous gender inequality gap. As we celebrate women and celebrate Women's Equality Day, I would like to do a special celebration to someone who I keep in mind as I think of the future of equality is now. And I ask you to join me in this celebration. And I'd like to brainstorm with you a little bit and see if any of you know who this woman is. Who is this woman who has played a significant role in changing the landscape of gender equality? Well, I'll give you a few hints. She's the first female of an American corporation. She became a CEO of an American corporation in 1889. Now, you may be saying, how is that possible? We weren't even allowed to vote in 1889. But she's my shero, and she should be yours, because she became CEO of an American corporation that is still in existence today, over 100 years ago. She became CEO and she had 5 children. She was widowed, and she took over the company that her husband owned. And I tell you all of this because this woman was resilient. She was courageous. She was confident. She fought the government for trademark and patent rights. And at a time when most would give up and say, I have a family to raise, she kept her battle going. Her fight continued, and she took the company global. Now, what else is fascinating about her is she was a philanthropist. She started women's groups. She went around door to door teaching women how to use her company's products. And we can learn from her. And I'll share with you now who this woman is if you have not guessed. Anna Sutherland Bissell was America's first female CEO. And today the Bissell Vacuum Company is still in existence and is rated as the #1 home product company in North America. So let's celebrate Anna Bissell as we celebrate Women's Equality Day. Let's keep her in mind as we continue our fight and our plight and everything that we are doing to reach gender equality for women. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you on this very victorious day, celebratory day, and I hope to see you in person soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sheila Robinson. As we move along in our program this morning, we have our call to action by the City of Greensboro Mayor, Ms. Nancy Vaughn, and by our commission's liaison and councilwoman, Mary Kay Abuziator, and our closing by the Human Rights Department Director, Dr. Love Jones.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Robinson, for your inspiring message, and to the Commission of Status of Women for hosting the Women's Equity Day celebration. It is my honor to be able to address you. I am disappointed that we're forced to meet virtually after battling the COVID pandemic for almost 18 months. The role that women play has never been more stressed or more challenging. From the cashier to the emergency room nurse, to the drugstore pharmacist, to the home health aide, taking the bus to check on an older client, to the soldier on the front lines of the national emergency, these roles are most likely done by a woman. 1 in 3 jobs held by women has been designated as essential, according to the New York Times analysis of census data crossed with the federal government's essential worker guidelines. Non-white women are more likely to be doing essential jobs than anyone else. The work they do is often underpaid and undervalued, an unseen labor force that keeps our country running and takes care of those most in need, whether we're in a pandemic or not. The COVID-19 pandemic is putting an unprecedented and significant strain on the global economy and public health systems, and right here in the city of Greensboro. It is also highlighting and magnifying inequalities faced by women, especially women of color. The pandemic is moving beyond a global health crisis and morphing into the labor market, social and economic crisis, and posing a serious threat to women's employment, livelihood, and health. Many companies, including the city of Greensboro, have risen to the challenges and are using their resources to provide information, supplies, and flexibility. Realizing the stress on all families, companies are offering flexible working arrangements, paid medical and sick leave, and insured income protection. These policies are not only serving their employees, but helping reduce the spread of COVID and to protect our public healthcare system. COVID-19 is affecting women in many ways, from concerns for their health and safety, to income security, to additional caring responsibilities, and increased exposure to domestic violence. Women are at the front line as healthcare workers, working long hours and exposing themselves to risk while caring for patients. Yet their jobs are most often undervalued and underpaid, and many of those jobs are staffed by women of color. Closure of schools and childcare have placed a significant additional care burden on women in the home, and it has put a spotlight on society's reliance on women. The impact on non-essential businesses, especially in the service sector, are particularly concerning for women as business owners. Many of them are losing their livelihoods because working from home is not an option. So what can we do? What can you and I do? This must be a coordinated effort between public and private sectors, ensuring there is diversity and that women's voices have a role in crisis task force response teams, and that women are represented and involved in all decision-making processes. to be mindful of employees with caring responsibilities and accommodate the additional needs they have during this time of crisis. And we are in a crisis. This includes flexible working hours for parents, particularly single parents and parents of disabled children. Adopt flexible working arrangements with full pay during and beyond the COVID-19 crisis for workers. Pay at least a living wage. Take the opportunity to discover new local businesses, particularly women-owned businesses who are affected by the crisis and who are helping in the pandemic response. Buy their products and services. Encourage your businesses and partners to do the same. Take proactive measures through internal and external communications to challenge gender stereotypes and roles, discrimination, and inequality. Communicate to women in your local community the importance of lifelong learning and the opportunity to acquire a new skill for the post-COVID-19 recovery. Financial institutions support local businesses with your finances, such as women's associations, shelters, especially ones with specific needs, the elderly, survivors of violence, single mothers, and disabled women. In closing, I want to say that we are continuing down this path of unknowns, and it is okay to feel overwhelmed. Women are juggling multiple roles. We are caregivers and we are breadwinners. This has been a long time. Give yourself some grace. Remember that your health, your self-care must be a priority. I hope that next year we will meet in person. I miss the human interaction and support. I really miss the smile on a friendly face. I know that you do too. I hope to see you next year.
Thank you, Mayor Vaughn, and thank you everyone who was involved in this program this morning. I especially want to thank the wonderful women of the Commission on the Status of Women, our wonderful Human Rights Department, Dr. Love Jones, Jody Stanley, and staff, and of course, all of the women here today who are tuning in to this program that is so important. I'm giving the call to action from Dr. Robinson's remarks. That was just amazing, Dr. Robinson. I thank you so much. The future of equality is now. Now, what does that look like? I think Dr. Robinson laid out what it can look like until we reach it in 2040. Of course, we're going to reach it. It looks like the future of equality goes back to the millions of women and male allies who helped us open the door. So the door is open. It looks like the fact that Greensboro has 8 city council women. That has opened the door. It looks like we have a woman in the White House. That has opened the door. As Dr. Robinson said, what must we do? So your call to action is to stay engaged, pay attention, fight for justice for women, make sure that women are safe and free from violence. Where can we do that? We can do that at home, with our neighbors, in the community, and we can also welcome our male allies to assist us. More than that, we can empower each other. I think that is one of the most important points I'm taking away. Empower each other to continue the quest, to keep that door open. We don't need to be closing that door. And we can also believe. We can believe that it can be done, that gender equity can happen. So in closing my remarks, I want to tell you that your call to action is what you are doing every day now. But we need to go even further. Just think, everyone's heard about the glass ceiling. I know everybody here has heard about that. So, we have cracked that glass ceiling, but now we need to shatter it. We need to shatter it into a million pieces so all women are paid what they're worth. So all women are safe and free from violence. So all women feel empowered and can empower each other. So that's what I leave you with today on this beautiful morning that we unfortunately are gathering on video, but as the mayor said, hopefully next year we can gather in person. But until that time, continue doing what you are doing, empower each other, educate each other, get involved, learn about your local elections, which are so important because they decide what you do every day. So in closing, I want to say thank you all so much. And I know that we can all shatter that ceiling. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Dr. Love Jones. I'm the director of the Human Rights Department, and I am so very enthused to close out such a wonderful celebration on behalf of the women who put this work together every year with a level of excellence that is unmatched, whether it's in person or if it's virtual. So my first thank you, sincerely, is to the Commission on the Status of Women, a group of city government body volunteers who have a legacy of awareness raising, inspiration, and most importantly, change. I also want to say thank you to Mayor Vaughn and Councilwoman Abuzawader, as well as any other council members who may be watching on this morning. Thank you for the support that you have given year after year. This is my 8th year in this role, and I have to say that the level of support given by our top city leadership for the work of the Commission on the Status of Women is paramount to what we do. So again, thank you. I would be remiss if I did not thank the human rights staff, specifically Jody Stanley, for the diligence in coordinating this event. This is the 2nd year in a row that this event has had to go forth virtually. Jody has not batted one eyelash at the changes where she's had to pivot on the drop of a dime. And that is indeed the part of a woman's legacy, is to indeed pivot on the drop of a dime and make it happen. And so Jody, to you and all other members of staff who contribute to the development of this program, I certainly say thank you. Today has been chock full of inspiration. We started with Chair Adrong, who talked about the fact that, her greatest reflection is on her mother, who despite hardship made it happen. And so I think it's important to think about the fact that women don't have it easy, but we still make life better. And now we're at a place where we are challenging the status quo about how to indeed improve the quality of life for women so that everything that we've touched, that we've made better, we can reap the benefit of it. Adria sang a wonderful song, Rise. And this program has been a reminder that we are not only equipped to rise to the occasion every single day, but that we are more than equipped to inspire a subsequent generation to do the same. We have a whole plethora of women that are coming up, a subsequent generation. And this kind of programming reminds us that the charge is so much bigger than us. And of course, most importantly, Dr. Robinson did an amazing job of talking us through the notion of commitment, the fact that commitment is what's going to push this needle forward. I love what she had to say about male allies. I am married to one of the most incredible allies that I know. Since George Floyd's untimely death, as well as the dawn of this pandemic, I have at times worked 17 hours in one day, hardly with any stops. And there's nothing that I've had to do alone. He has been an incredible team player, but he is also team player for his daughters. He's been an incredible team dad for my oldest daughter who played field hockey until graduation. And he's a new cheer dad for my youngest daughter who just made the squad at her high school. He takes every opportunity that he can to uplift and affirm the work of women. And so my hope is that more men follow suit to see themselves as a great catalyst in this work of pushing the needle forward on women's equality. But more than anything, Dr. Robinson talked about the power of belief. Every day that I get up for work, every day that each of us allow our feet to hit the floor, we have the ability to believe that something else is possible for the women, not only in Greensboro, not only in the country, but around the world. And so it's that belief, it's that notion that inspired the words of our Mayor, Nancy Vaughn, as well as Councilwoman Abuzawader, in the charges that they put forth about how to make Greensboro an attractive place for women not only to function, but thrive. The future of equality is now. And I think that in closing, it is imperative to remind each of us that the future being now rests in the hearts, minds, and spirits of our daily actions that affirm the work of women everywhere at all times. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to participate, to view this Equality Day breakfast. Your support means everything. Thank you again to all of our program participants. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And again, remember, the future is now.